In 1988, my dream of being on Broadway collided with my mother's battle against cancer. Stay tuned. I'm out of New York City, living with Mom in her hospital room, living in the room with my mother. I'm disoriented and not giving one hoot about my acting career or anything else, except my mother's welfare. The rest of the world is non-existent. So, of course, I receive a call to audition to replace Joan Allen in Burn This on Broadway. Joan won the Tony for her performance. Marshall Mason, the artistic director of Circle Rep and the director of Burn This, requested me. I met Marshall Mason a few years back when I auditioned to replace the lead actress Kathy Baker in Fool for Love. Broadway is my dream. Opportunities like this are rare, and Marshall Mason requested me. I've spent most of my life training for a chance like this, but my mother is dying. Should I go back to New York and audition? I can't leave my mother here. If I go, will I be racked with guilt? I broached the subject with her, and she beams. Of course you should audition. This is a wonderful opportunity, and you're so talented. My mother never told me I was talented, ever. I fly back to New York, but my heart is with Mom in her hospital room. The moment I'm home, I call her. I miss you, Mom. I miss you too. Break a leg, hurry back. Nothing is real except my mother lies in a hospital bed with stage 4 inoperable lung cancer. The night before my audition, I'm given a ticket to attend Burn This. Now, I saw the play when it opened on Broadway. John Malkovich was still in the show, and I remember being profoundly moved. But tonight, I'm detached, uninvolved. The next morning, I pull my Donna Karan audition outfit from the closet. I can't believe I spent this much money, but once I started making money, I went to Bergdorf's and splurged. At the time, this empowered me. Now, it's meaningless. I'm numb, going through the motions, but my vision is crystalline. I'm in a heightened state of awareness. The thought of riding the subway in my compromised state is incomprehensible. So I take the bus to the Plymouth Theater. I'm early. I try to breathe, relax, be present. I love being in the zone and alive on stage, but the audition is a blur, more like an out-of-body experience. I'm on the Broadway stage, script in hand. I'm not in my body. I'm floating above somehow. I listen. I speak. Marshall Mason laughs at one of my lines. The scene is over. Marshall makes his way to the front of the stage, shakes my hand, and thanks me for coming. On the bus ride home, I fantasize about being on Broadway and leaving Henry. Oh, I'll run off with a 28-year-old dancer/Adonis from my scene study class. He's dancing in 42nd Street on Broadway. The Adonis and I will be Broadway lovers together. Well, that would serve Henry right. The phone was ringing when I put my key in the apartment door. My aunt sounded concerned. Gio, your mother's lung collapsed. I'm sorry, sweetheart, but you need to come back. I don't hesitate. I change my clothes, call the airlines, and return to the hospital. My mother's chart no longer hangs at the foot of her bed. It resides behind the desk at the nurse's station. Well, they most likely got sick and tired of my annoying questions. I understand. But I continue requesting her chart every evening to study the findings and decipher a code I can't comprehend. The next time I'm at my parents' house for one of my marathon bike rides, Dad informs me, I went to visit your mother. We made our peace. I loved your mother. She was a wonderful wife for many years. He starts to sob. We hug and cry together. When I return to the hospital, Mom isn't in the room, so my aunt and I have a more in-depth conversation. We sit on my hospital bed and chat. Mom's depressed. I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't either. I don't think Mom ever got over the death of little Charles, and She just never recovered from his loss, but managed her grief most of the time. And when Dad returned from Vietnam, he was volatile, angry, drinking himself into a stupor every night. And Mom stopped drinking, fell into a deep depression. Gosh, Gio, that's horrible. I wanted to tell my aunt what I'd learned from reading about Chinese medicine, how the lungs represent depression, sadness, and grief, but I was too embarrassed, so I kept it to myself. The following afternoon, an efficient nurse with a clipboard enters, Julia Dalton? Yes, I'm here to administer lung therapy. Lung therapy is brutal. They pound your lungs to remove the fluid. No way, my mother is having lung therapy. Are you aware my mother's lung collapsed? She stares at her clipboard, searching for a clue. Sorry? Hold on. I reach for the phone, call Mom's doctor, who clarifies lung therapy is no longer needed. The nurse apologizes and leaves. Mom's in a coma on a morphine drip. The doctor informed me she had 24 hours to live. Cam's still on vacation, so I tracked her down. Dad is furious with me. Why would you bother your sister? She's on vacation. He booms over the phone like he's on Mount Olympus. I want to fight. I want to yell. If you were around, maybe you'd understand. But I don't have the emotional energy to fight. My brother and baby sister aren't at the hospital. I'm not sure why, except they were both having a hard time dealing with the reality of the situation. I get it. Cam arrived at the hospital. I'm so glad and relieved she's here. The hospice nurse informed us, your mother's in a coma, but she's conscious. She can hear you. I suggest you go ahead and say anything to her that you want her to know. Cam and I stood on either side of Mom's hospital bed. Mom, I love you. You were a wonderful mother. We'll be fine. You don't need to stay here for us. The tears streamed down my mother's face. I called Henry to apprise him of the situation, and I asked him to fly down. I have classes. I'm studying for exams. I know, I realize it's bad timing, but I could really use your support. The doctors and nurses said she doesn't have long now. Well, you better not bring me to Colombia for no reason. His words seared through me. I don't care. For some reason, I needed him here. He's my family. By the time Henry arrived, Mom had been in a coma for 5 days. Her steadfast heart is racing like she's running a marathon. The hospice nurse advised me many times, people hold on. She needs your permission to go. My heart was broken, but I leaned down and whispered, Mom, we love you. You can go. We'll be fine. That night, Henry fell asleep in the chair at the foot of Mom's bed. Cam and I slept in my hospital bed. I'm dreaming. Mom and I are sitting on a wooden swing on a massive white front porch, the kind of a porch attached to a Southern antebellum home. Mom smiled a melancholy half smile. Jill, my life didn't quite turn out the way I planned. I'm awakened when Cam touched my right shoulder and whispered, Mom's gone. She took her final breath. Mom got her wish. She said she wanted out by June 1, and she died on June 1st at 7:02 a.m. The doctors stopped by to pay their respects, except for Dr. Payne. Dr. Bernstein comforted us. Working with your mother and family was an honor. Many families drop off a terminal patient and disappear, except when they return to retrieve the body. After living in the hospital room with my mother for 6 weeks, I'm spent. My glands are swollen. My throat is inflamed. My nerves shot. I thanked the doctors and informed them. I'm glad to be getting out of here because I'd need to be admitted if I stayed any longer. They laughed. I'm not joking. I didn't realize lung cancer is the most common cause of cancer-related death in men and women worldwide. 70% of those diagnosed with lung cancer only last a year after the discovery. The rest, like my mom, aren't so lucky. Henry and I stayed at his mother's lake house. At some point, Everyone was gone, and I found myself alone in the guest room. My acting teacher, Terry Schreiber, encouraged me. Feel the pain when it arises, Jill. You must allow yourself to grieve, because if you don't, the pain will come back twice as strong and get you. So I heeded his advice and surrendered to the hurricane of grief swirling inside me. I descended into a bottomless, dark pit and howled like a wounded animal. The sounds coming out of me were primal, guttural, the pain unbearable. I crumpled into myself. I was afraid I'd be engulfed and eaten alive by loss, and nothing would remain but the dust from my bones. Henry wrote Mom's obituary, which I was so thankful for because I was in no condition to write one. My mother's memorial service in Columbia, South Carolina, was filled to the brim. I'm amazed at how many people were there to celebrate her life and pay their respects. Turns out she was quite popular. I'm a wreck. I'm having a really difficult time maintaining my composure. I'm no Jackie O. Whenever anyone approached me to give their condolences, I was so afraid I would break down sobbing. I'd say, please, if you can't say something mean, don't say anything at all. I was honored to spend this sacred time with my mother, but her unexpected death cracked me into a million pieces. My mother and I had issues. All mothers and daughters have issues. But I uncovered a connection between us that ran so deep that it defied time and space. I understood for the first time how much I loved her, how connected we were. We all come from our mother's womb. We share her blood. We share DNA. Any resentment or anger I had about our relationship melted away when she got sick. Death has a way of putting everything into perspective and making everything real. I took my mother for granted, gave her a hard time about not being a liberated woman, whatever that is, for not going out into the world and making something of herself. Instead, my mother put her painting on hold and had 5 children. She turned homemaking into an art, but I perceived her as weak. I believe my father was somebody important. He went out into the world and did things, whereas my mother stayed home and mothered, fed, and loved us. And now she's gone. I remember visiting a psychic once who said to me, your mother has gossamer wings and is too delicate for the ways of this world. We buried my mother in the New Garden Cemetery in Guilford, North Carolina, next to her firstborn son and my brother, Charles. She's free now. No more pain, no more radiation or hospital nonsense. She's free to paint to her heart's content. After the funeral service, Henry and I drove to my aunt and uncle's house in our rental car. I stared out the window. Your family's so uppity and annoying with their fancy cars. What? Henry's words knocked me out of my trance. I'm sorry. What did you say? Henry, what are you talking about? Your relatives. They think they're hot stuff. Okay. To be clear, my aunt and uncle drove a 4-screen Jag. So what? My cousin's husband drove a top-of-the-line BMW. In the scheme of things, who cares? Henry droned on and on about my relatives being wealthy jerks. I tried to ignore him, but Henry, stop. I buried my mother. I'm not interested in your petty complaints. We drove the rest of the way in silence. Life is a precious gift, and it's short. None of us know how long any of us are going to be here. There's no guarantees. I believed that my mother was going to live to be 100 and be painting like Whistler's mother. Boy, was I wrong. So be sure and enjoy every day. Live it like it is your last day. Be sure and tell people you love them, you care about them. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. Really means the world to me. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification button and be sure to leave your comments below. And I also want to give a special thanks to everyone who bought me a coffee or a super thanks. Roxanne 63, Aaron L, Sheila P, at JP Page 3292, Dorothy M. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It means the world to me. All right, you guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. Mwah. It's like Dinah Shore. Mwah.